So, I want to start today's deep dive with a story about a turkey, specifically a mother turkey.
Oh, yeah, the turkey study. This is a wild one to kick things off with.
It really is, because usually, mother turkeys are incredible parents. They're watchful, they're protective. They basically spend their whole day keeping their chicks warm and safe.
Right.
But researchers found this very strange, almost mechanical glitch in their operating system.
It is a fascinating and, honestly, slightly disturbing glitch. So ethologists, the scientists who study animal behavior in the wild, they discovered that virtually all of this mothering behavior is triggered by exactly one thing.
Which is just the sound, right?
Exactly. Just the cheep, cheep sound of the chicks.
Wait, so it's not the smell of the chick. It's not the way the baby bird looks.
No, it is entirely the sound. And to prove this, they did an experiment with a polecat. Now, for a turkey, a polecat is a natural enemy.
Like an absolute arch nemesis.
Right. If a live polecat comes anywhere near the nest, the mother turkey will viciously attack it, squawking, pecking, the whole works. But the researchers took a stuffed polecat and they put a little recorder inside it.
And they played the cheep, cheep sound.
They played the cheep, cheep sound, and the result was immediate. The mother turkey didn't just tolerate the enemy, she actually gathered it underneath her. She cuddled the stuffed polecat.
But the moment they turned the recorder off,
She realized it was a polecat and attacked it. She ripped it apart.
that is just totally wild to me. She's basically a robot. The sound turns on and she mothers. The sound turns off and she attacks.
In a way, yes. The ethologists call these fixed action patterns. You can think of it like a tape recorder in the animal brain. There's a specific trigger click, and the tape starts playing whir.
Click war.
Exactly. The standard sequence of behaviors just rolls out whether the situation actually calls for it or not.
Click whir. I really like that image. But here's the thing, right? We aren't turkeys,
We like to think we are.
right? We have big, complex human brains.
Yeah.
We analyze things. We don't have these automatic tapes, do we?
Well, that is the uncomfortable truth we need to unpack today. We're doing a deep dive into the seminal work of Robert Cialdini, specifically his book Influence. And his argument, based on years of research, is that we absolutely have our own versions of click whir.
We have automatic patterns that trigger compliance.
We do. And the scary part is there are people out there, salespeople, advertisers, con artists, who basically have the manual. They know exactly where our buttons are.
So our mission today is to hand that manual over to you, the listener. We want to expose these weapons of influence, as Cialdini calls them, so you can spot when your own brain is being hacked.
Yeah.
Because I assume these aren't just cheap parlor tricks, really.
Far from it. These are fundamental psychological principles. But before we get into the heavy hitters, we should mention the setup mechanism that makes a lot of this possible. Cialdini calls it the contrast principle.
Oh, this is the one that explains why you should never, ever buy the sweater before you buy the suit, right?
That's the classic example, yeah. It's all about perception. If a man walks into a clothing store and buys a nice suit for, say, $500, his spending anchor is set high.
So his brain is calibrated to a big number.
Right. So if the salesperson then suggests a $90 sweater, the sweater seems cheap in comparison. Oh, it's only 90 bucks.
But if he'd seen the sweater first, $90 for a sweater might seem ridiculous.
Precisely. The order matters entirely. We see this in real estate too. Cialdini talks about setup properties.
The dumps.
Yeah, the dumps. Some real estate companies maintain rundown houses listed at artificially inflated prices. They don't actually intend to sell them to anyone.
They just use them as a prop.
Exactly. They
Okay.
just show them to you first. They drag you through these terrible, overpriced places so that when they finally show you the house they actually want to sell you, it looks amazing by comparison.
It's basically social jujitsu. They're using the momentum of one perception to flip you into another. Okay, let's get into the big weapons from the source material. The first one Cialdini highlights is arguably the glue that holds society together. Reciprocity.
Reciprocity is foundational. It's the deep-seated rule that says we must try to repay in kind what another person has provided us.
It's how civilization works.
Yeah, it allowed our ancestors to share food or tools with the confidence that they weren't losing resources but investing them. It created this web of indebtedness that bound communities together.
But in the modern world, this creates a massive vulnerability.
Yeah.
It creates the jet, an obligation to receive.
And that obligation removes our free choice. If I give you a gift, you are socially prohibited from refusing it without looking rude. And once you accept it, the rule kicks in. You are indebted to me.
The classic example here, and I think a lot of people listening might have encountered this in some form, is the Hare Krishnas. Back in the 70s, they were ubiquitous in airports.
They were everywhere, but they had a major problem. They were trying to raise money through chanting and begging, But frankly, most Americans found their appearance and behavior strange. They weren't getting donations.
So they hacked the reciprocity rule.
They did. They stopped begging and started giving. This is the free gift strategy. They would target travelers in airports. A disciple would walk up and press a flower or a book right into your hand.
And if you tried to give it back?
They absolutely wouldn't take it. They'd say, no, no, it is our gift to you. Now imagine the situation. You are holding this flower. You didn't ask for it. You don't want it.
But the click whir has started.
Exactly. You have received a gift.
So you feel this immense internal pressure to balance the scales, even if you hate the flower.
That's the key. The traveler now feels a psychological burden of debt. To relieve that tension, they give a donation. Cialdini observed that people would often throw the flower in the trash bin 10 feet away, but they still gave the money.
The rule was more powerful than their dislike of the flower. That is wild. It's amazing that the gift doesn't even have to be desirable for the rule to work. Amway did this too, didn't they? With the BUG.
The BUG was a stroke of genius. This was a collection of household products, cleaners, polishes, detergents, all in a basket. The salespeople would drop this basket off at a house for 24, 72 hours, completely free of charge.
And they'd say, just try it out, no obligation.
Right, which sounds super friendly. You use a little Windex, maybe polish a table, but you've consumed their product. You've accepted their hospitality.
So when the salesperson comes back to collect the basket, the trap springs.
You feel trapped by the rule of reciprocity. You can't just hand back a half-used bottle of cleaner and say, thanks, so you buy it.
Now, there's a sneakier version of this that I think is even more dangerous because it doesn't involve a physical object at all. It involves negotiation. The rejection, then retreat.
This is arguably the most powerful aspect of reciprocity. It operates entirely on the idea of a concession.
Cialdini tells this story about a Boy Scout that actually happened to him personally, right?
He does. He was walking down the street and a Boy Scout approached him. The boy asked him to buy tickets to the Boy Scout circus. They were $5 each. Now, Cialdini had zero interest in a Boy Scout circus, so he politely refused.
Which is totally reasonable.
But then the boy said, well, if you don't want to buy tickets, how about buying some of our chocolate bars? They're only $1.
And suddenly, Cialdini, who points out he doesn't even like chocolate, is walking away with 2 chocolate bars.
Why? Because the boy made a concession. He retreated from the big request for the circus to the small request for the chocolate.
The rule of reciprocity dictates that Cialdini had to meet him halfway.
Exactly. He had to reciprocate the concession by saying yes to the second offer.
This sounds totally harmless with chocolate bars, but when you look at history, this same principle might explain one of the most baffling political crimes ever, Watergate.
It's a very compelling theory. Now, just to be clear to you listening, we aren't taking any political sides here. We are just examining the historical events through the lens of psychology as laid out in the source material.
Right, we're just looking at the mechanics of the decision? Because if you look at the facts of Watergate, it makes no sense.
None at all. G. Gordon Liddy proposed a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. It was incredibly high-risk, foolish, and the potential gain was minimal.
So why did highly intelligent men like John Mitchell, the Attorney General, approve such a stupid plan?
Because it wasn't the first plan Liddy pitched. If Liddy had walked in and just pitched the break-in, they would have laughed him out of the room. But that's not what happened.
He started way bigger.
He started with a $1 million plan. It was completely insane. It involved kidnapping mugging squads and a yacht with high-class prostitutes to blackmail politicians.
Which obviously Mitchell rejected immediately.
So Liddy went away and came back with a $500,000 plan. Still rejected. But then he came back a third time with a bare-bones plan for $250,000.
The actual break-in.
Right. And compared to the kidnapping and the yacht, it looked like a massive concession. Mitchell felt obligated to throw Liddy a bone because Liddy had backed down so much.
Click whir?
Click whir?
Click.
They approved a disaster because it felt like a compromise.
That is genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
It works even when the stakes are massive. It reminds me of that zoo experiment Cialdini mentions.
That's the one that proves this works in a controlled setting. Researchers asked college students to volunteer to counsel juvenile delinquents for 2 hours a week for 2 years. A massive request.
I'm guessing practically everyone said no.
Almost 100% said no. But then they asked a different group, okay, well, if you can't do that, would you at least chaperone a group of delinquents on a single-day trip to the zoo?
And what happened?
Compliance jumped to 50%. 3 times as many people agreed to the zoo trip compared to when they were just asked about the zoo trip directly. The retreat makes the yes happen.
So if you want something, ask for the moon first?
Within reason, yes. If the first request is too extreme, you just look like a joker. But if it's just aggressive enough to be rejected, you set yourself up for the win on the retreat.
Okay, let's pivot to the next big weapon. So, if reciprocity is about the pressure to give back to others, this next one feels like the pressure to be true to ourselves. Commitment and consistency.
This one is deeply psychological. The rule is once we make a choice or take a stand, we face immense personal and interpersonal pressure to behave consistently with that commitment.
We want to look like we know what we're doing. We don't want to seem flaky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a study from a racetrack that perfectly illustrates this weird confidence shift.
Yeah, they interviewed bettors, right?
Yes, 30 seconds before they placed a bet and 30 seconds after. Now, logically, nothing has changed in that minute. The horse is the same, the track is the same, the odds are the same.
But 30 seconds after handing over their money, the bettors were significantly more confident that their horse would win.
Because they had committed. Once you pick a horse, your brain does mental gymnastics to align your beliefs with your action. You can't be the kind of person who bets on a loser so you convince yourself it's a winner.
I feel like toy companies have totally weaponized this against parents. I always wondered why there's a slump in toy sales in January, but then some specific toys just keep selling. It turns out it's a calculated trap.
It is the toy store trap. So picture this. It's November. They advertise a specific, really cool toy on TV, let's say a robot. Your kid sees it and makes you promise, I want the robot for Christmas.
And you being a good parent, you promise Santa will bring it.
But then you get to the store in December and surprise, it's sold out.
Every single store.
That is part of the plan. The companies purposely undersupply the store with that specific robot, so you have to buy a substitute toy so there's something under the tree. The toy companies make their money there.
But then in January,
They start running the ads for the robot again.
and the kid says, but you promised.
And because you need to be consistent with your word, that commitment you made, you trudge back to the store and buy the robot, they sold you 2 toys instead of 1 all because you couldn't break your consistency.
That is diabolical.
Yeah.
But let's look at a much darker application of this. During the Korean War, the Chinese captors were surprisingly successful at getting American POWs to collaborate. And the scary thing is, they didn't rely on brutal physical torture. They used consistency.
They called it starting small and building. They realized that if you try to force a soldier to betray his country outright, he'll resist. But if you ask him to make a tiny, seemingly harmless statement, like the United States is not perfect.
Well, sure. That's true. It's hard to argue with that.
So the soldier says it, then they ask him to write that down, then maybe read it in a discussion group.
The act of writing is really crucial here, isn't it?
It's vital. Cialdini points out that writing is physical evidence. You can't deny you said it.
It makes the commitment real in the physical world.
Right. And then the captors would ask, well, why isn't it perfect? The prisoner writes a list. Later, they use his name and his essay in a camp broadcast.
Suddenly, this soldier sees himself as a collaborator.
To be consistent with that new self-image, he starts doing more and more for the captors. He aligns his actions with the label he helped create. They didn't just change his behavior, they changed how he viewed himself.
And we see a commercial version of this every day. It's called the lowball technique.
Oh, the car dealership special. It works like this. The dealer offers a car at a price that is just too good to be true, maybe $400 below competitors.
They get you to decide. You commit.
You fill out the forms, you smell the new car smell, you mentally park it in your driveway.
You've completely stopped looking at other options.
Then at the very last second, the price advantage is pulled. Oh, there was a bank error or the manager said no. The price goes back up to market value.
And logically, you should walk away. The deal is gone.
But you don't. Because in the time between the commitment and the error, you generated new reasons to justify the purchase. It gets good gas mileage. The color is great. The seats are comfy.
I built a whole support system for your decision.
Exactly. The dealer pulls the original prop, the cheap price, but the table stands on the new legs you built yourself.
That is a great metaphor.
Yeah.
The commitment creates its own justification. Now, before we move on, there's a fascinating nuance here about threats versus internal choice. And this involves a robot toy again.
The Friedman experiment. This is critical for any parents listening. Friedman wanted to see if he could stop boys from playing with a really cool robot toy. With the first group, he used a severe threat. He said, if you play with this, I will be very angry and do something about it.
And naturally, they didn't play with it while he was standing right there.
Right. But 6 weeks later, when the threat was removed, the vast majority of them went straight for the robot. They hadn't changed their internal belief. They were just avoiding punishment.
But the second group.
He simply told them it is wrong to play with the robot. No big threat, just a statement. 6 weeks later, those boys still didn't play with the robot
Why the massive difference?
because they had to take internal responsibility. They didn't have a big external threat to blame for their behavior. They had to say to themselves, I didn't play with it because I decided not to.
They changed their self-image to be boys who don't play with the robot.
That commitment stuck because it came from the inside.
That is a powerful distinction. Internal responsibility creates lasting consistency. Okay, moving to our third major weapon today. This one is everywhere. Social proof.
The truth is us. Or rather, we view a behavior as correct to the degree that we see others performing it.
Which brings us back to the bane of television. Canned laughter, everyone hates it. Actors hate it. Audiences say they hate it, so why is it still on TV?
Because it works. It is scientifically proven that people laugh longer and harder when they hear the laughter track, even if the jokes are terrible.
It's the turkey and the polecat again, isn't it?
It is exactly that. We are responding to the sound of humor, not the reality of humor. It's a mental shortcut. If others are laughing, it must be funny.
Social proof can be used for good, though. There was a study by Bandura regarding children with severe phobias of dogs.
Yes, this is a very positive application. They
Yeah.
took children who were terrified of dogs and just had them watch a little boy playing happily with a dog for 20 minutes a day.
No intense therapy, just watching.
Just watching. And after 4 days, 67% of them were willing to climb into a playpen with a dog. And it worked even better with video clips showing many different children playing with dogs.
Multiple sources of proof. If all those kids are doing it, it must be safe.
Correct. But social proof gets really strange when things go wrong. We have to talk about the doomsday cult in Chicago.
Oh, the Guardians. This is one of the weirdest stories in the whole book.
It really is. So you had a group led by Marion Keech and Dr. Armstrong. They predicted a massive flood that would destroy the world on a specific date, and they believed a flying saucer would come to rescue the true believers at midnight.
Now, leading up to the date, how were they behaving? Were they out on street corners, handing out flyers, trying to save people?
Quite the opposite, actually. They were very secretive. They shunned publicity. They even fired group members who talked to the press. They were totally secure in their belief.
But then the night comes. Midnight passes. No saucer.
No flood, just a room full of disappointed people sitting in awkward silence until 4 in the morning.
Imagine being in that room. The prophecy failed completely. The physical evidence proved them wrong.
So what did they do? Did they disband? Did they go home in shame? No. They suddenly claimed they received a message that their faith had saved the world from the flood. And then immediately they called the newspapers. They called the radio stations.
We started aggressively recruiting.
Yes.
But why? Why recruit after you've been proven completely wrong?
Because a physical reality had betrayed them. The only thing left to support their belief was social reality. If they could convince others to believe, then their belief would feel true again.
As Cialdini puts it, convinces and ye shall be convinced.
That's it. When the physical proof is gone, social proof is the only thing left to stand on. It shows how desperate we are to have our views validated by the group.
That is deeply human and also terrifying. So what does this all mean for us? Cialdini calls this social jujitsu.
It is. These exploiters, the sales pros, the con artists, they aren't creating power from thin air. They are channeling natural psychological forces, gravity leverage. They use the reciprocity rule or the consistency principle to flip us without using much of their own force.
So how do you, listening to this, actually defend yourself? Let's start with reciprocity. If someone hands me a flower or a free gift and I feel that twinge of obligation, what do I do?
You have to redefine it mentally. If it's a genuine gift, fine. But if you realize it's a sales tactic, you have to label it as a tactic. The rule of reciprocity says you repay a favor with a favor. It does not say you have to repay a trick with a favor.
I really like that. I'm not obligated to pay for a trick. What about consistency? How do we spot that trap?
You have to listen to your body. Cialdini talks about 2 specific signals. First, the stomach sign. You know that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach when you realize you're being trapped into something you don't actually want to do?
Like when I'm agreeing to a magazine subscription I don't even read just because I told the salesperson I was an intellectual 5 minutes ago.
But is exactly the one. When you feel that you have to stop, call it out. Say to them, I don't want to be foolishly consistent.
And the second signal?
The heart of hearts. That's for when the trap is more subtle and your brain is already making up excuses, like with the lowball car offer. Ask yourself, knowing what I know now, if I could go back in time, would I make this same choice?
And you just trust that first flash of feeling you get before your brain starts rationalizing.
Trust the flash. It's usually right.
You know, the scariest part of all this for me is that we are probably going to need these shortcuts more in the future, not less.
That is the great irony of modern life. The world is getting so much more complex. We have more information, more choices, and a much faster pace than ever before. We don't have time to rationally analyze every single decision.
We need social proof. We need to rely on trusted experts.
We do, which means we are reacting to the click whir because we simply don't have the bandwidth to think everything through.
We're becoming more like the turkey.
We really are. And that means the people who hold the tape recorders, the people who know how to fake the cheap, cheap sound, are going to become more powerful than ever.
Well, on that deeply provocative thought, keep your eyes open. Watch out for the polecats bearing gifts. And thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Stay safe out there.